Smack 'em, stack 'em, lack 'em, rack 'em. It's Demolition Derby on the COCO
Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the COCO Show! This week, Brent.
Yes.
Sunday.
That's it.
TNT presents Demolition Derby.
They're already watching the show. Do we need to keep harassing them like this?
Yeah, we do.
All right, I guess you know your business.
Yes, this week we'll be taking a look at the legendary Tandy game, Demolition Derby. By legendary, it's one of the games I saw almost every time I went to the Radio Shack. They actually had this one on the shelf.
This was and display playable.
Now, we could just jump right into the game.
Okay,
but
let's do it.
No, because there's not. Here's the problem with Demolition Derby.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of Demolition Derby talk in there, and I want to get some in. When's this opportunity going to come back around the COCO Show to talk about Demolition Derby? So I'm a big fan of the Demolition Derby.
I figure you could find a way to shoehorn it in somewhere else.
And I'm going to tell you how I got into it. Right. So back in the day when I was a little young Amigo Aaron, I used to watch Happy Days with the folks. Remember Happy Days?
Yeah.
There's an episode.
Well, sort of.
There's an episode of Happy Days where Fonzie and Pinky Tuscadero are in the Demolition Derby. I never heard of these before.
Okay.
And so they introduced me to the concept of Demolition Derby. And in case you're not familiar with it, I guess they're worldwide. I don't know. But you start with like X amount of cars, and they just ram each other until the last one moving wins. That's basically the way it works. And you take usually not the best cars are involved in this.
Yeah, you don't bring your Porsche to the Demolition Derby.
That's right. And the gimmick in this is you kind of want to ram your opponents with the back end of the car to protect your engine while avoiding getting hit with the front.
Right. Well, it's really less the engine, more the radiator, because you'll overheat in a minute when that thing's busted.
And so in the episode, Fonzie and Pinky are in their cars, much of the other racers in the car, and there are these two guys called the Malachi brothers, all right? The Malachi brothers, they drove these black cars with the skull and bones on the side. And so they have this move they use called the Malachi Crunch.
Yep.
And they'll get on either side of you, and they simultaneously mush you with their car. So Fonzie, his car is stalled, and they line up for the Malachi Crunch, and right before they hit him, Fonzie uses his Fonzie magic to whack the steering wheel, and the engine comes on, and he backs away, and they hit each other. It's a great wrestling-style gimmick.
Yeah. But
Pinky's an idiot, okay? Her car stalls. And by the way, this is highly illegal, and no one in their right mind would do this, but Pinky, being a dummy, she gets out of her car and is going to work on the car in the middle of the Demolition Derby. So the Malachis are like, but right before she gets out of the car, they set her up for the crunch, and then they crunch her, and then she gets mauled, taken to the hospital. That's the end of the Demolition Derby. But I was hooked. The Malachi Crunch, the black car with the skull crosses I was in. And every once in a blue moon on the ABC Wild World of Sports, they would show a Demolition Derby.
Yep.
And it was a big one. They'd had these huge Demolition Derbies in like Milwaukee and stuff, where all these cars would get together, this big, huge stadium, and they'd have a big, huge battle. So I thought, okay, that's what Demolition Derbies are. So I was like, as soon as I was old enough, I was living in Kentucky, and they had the state fair. I was like, I'm going to these, or county fair. I was like, I'm going to go a couple of these Demolition Derbies. I want to see them live, all right? Boy, was I disappointed. Demolition Derbies at the local fair take place on a strip of land that's just wide enough to put a few cars on. Then they muddy the track up, and then the cars can barely move. Yeah. And so it's more like, cars get destroyed, sorta, but it sucked. The live Demolition Derby experience has not been the best. I went to one or two county fairs where they gave the guys enough space and left the track dry enough to where they could actually be some damage dealt. But for the most part, it's nothing like on TV or on a Wild World of Sports. It's been a disappointment.
So you're saying the local venue didn't meet the expectations of the worldwide premiere on television.
You got that right.
Okay.
And the thing is, there are real Demolition Derbies, real ones that take place in like the South. Like people, despite what you may think, we're not in the South. We're sort of like the Mid-Atlantic. We're right there. We're on the border.
Yeah.
And so the South, I'm talking like Florida in particular, where there was a show I used to watch called Car Apocalypse.
Yep.
I love the Car Apocalypse. because they would have all these crazy races. They'd race buses, and they'd do figure-8 races with buses and with cars with trailers. And they would also have big, real demolition derbies where you could get mauled because it's the South. It's a different breed of cat down there. You know, so have you ever seen a live demolition derby?
I have seen track style, like the figure-8 style.
That's not the same.
I
That's a
understand,
different thing.
but no, I've never seen a real, I guess, arena-based demolition derby.
What's
I've never seen one live.
someone like yourself, a neophyte in the professional sport of demolition derby racing? Like, what do you take from this spectrum, this spectacle? You've seen it on TV. Like, what do you think about this? What does it do anything for you? The whole car smashing?
I mean, no, I think there's appeal there.
Yeah.
I know that my coworker helps with the county fair that just came and gone, and they do demolition derby there. And
it stinks. I went to that one. Well, I went to one of them.
County?
Yeah, I've been to it a couple times. There's not enough room for the cars to maneuver with all that mud.
It's a lot of, when you get into the particulars, which I think if I was going to get into watching demolition derby, I would get into particulars of how you set your car up and what you're allowed, because you have to install a roll cage into your car, for example.
And they have to protect the fuel tank, and you have to take all the glass out. Yeah.
I think if there was a way of viewing the sport experience, whatever you want to say, to that level where they're showing the car modifications, kind of like Carpocalypse did, I could get into that. But if I just was like, oh, I'm going to flip on the TV and watch a demolition derby, maybe one a year I could stomach, but it gets old. In my opinion, it gets old.
If anyone, by the way, I'm going to use this platform as a voice. If anyone can link me to the entirety of the Carpocalypse TV show, the videos, I will be eternally grateful.
Yeah.
Because I've got like one or two, and you can't find them anywhere.
Yeah,
and the second season, they changed the format, which was still okay, but not as good. I need some rainbow action. I mean, these were like, the one thing about that show, you had legitimate idiots that were doing legitimate idiot crap, which made it fun. So Demolition Derby's gotten the treatment in video games. This is probably one of the earlier video games. Of course, there was an arcade game called Demolition Derby, which I played. That's the one where you can, it's just a proper Demolition Derby with I think it's like, you can have up to 4 players, I think, at least 3. And you just travel around the track. And every time you win the track, it shows more of a hot chick in the intermission. So you can build the entire hot chick. They've sort of video digitized a woman. I played that at church camp, by the way. It worked out good. And then there, of course, probably when I think of like the premier Demolition Derby games, I think about that Psygnosis joint, Destruction Derby, when it came to PlayStation and PC. That was revolutionary. I didn't like any of the other stuff, but the Demolition Derby part was great.
Well, and that was probably the apex of Demolition Derby gaming.
I don't know, Wreckfest. There's been a ton more since then that are really good. But nobody, you don't hear me talk about it. But I think that was a super popular game because it had real car damage and stuff.
Do you think there's any market for a modern Demolition Derby game?
I think they're out there right now.
I mean,
Wreckfest is popular.
High budget.
Not just exclusively Demolition Derby.
Well, no, you've got to throw in the wacky track races. And
we covered a game, and it's one of Boat's least favorite episodes. But on our very first Xbox games episode, we covered on ARG Presents. We covered a game called Test Drive Eve of Destruction, which has it's great. That's one of the all-time great car games. And it's got a great Demolition Derby mode in it.
That's actually the one I was thinking of when we were talking about.
So that's a real good one. So if you're looking to, and you can also have 4-player split screen, which is awesome. You get your boys. Me and Luke love it. So if you like that, you can trash buses. It's got all sorts of crazy events, and it's even got footage from Carpocalypse in it.
Yes.
So there you go. It's funny. I don't like cars. I don't know anything about cars, and I don't know how to work on cars. But I do like stuff involving their destruction. Because I like the Bull Run, I like Carpocalypse, I like Cannonball Run, stuff like that. I love that stuff.
You give in to your baser instincts a lot.
Oh, yeah. Whenever possible, man. Speaking of which, let's give in our baser instincts to talk about Tandy's Demolition Derby. Bam! We're right into it, folks. So, Brent, I think I know the answer to this, but had you tried this one out back in the day?
Yes, we almost certainly we had this. Although my memories of it could just be from me playing it on the store display in the Radio Shack.
This is one that I absolutely played, but I will say I don't think I played it right. I think I learned a lot just a week playing the game. This was released in 1984 on the COCO, and also there was a Dragon release. There's a button combination you could hit this and change the screen to that green background. Yeah. So you can I wouldn't do that, but you could if you wanted to. This was developed by our personal favorite, the Spectral Associates. And the Spectral Associates have done tons and tons of games, including, but not limited to, Springster, the Pegasus game we really liked, Space Wreck, Interbank Incident, Galagon, Kicks, Beam Rider, Color Palette, Downland, Crystal Castles, tons and tons. And the actual programmer of this particular game is John Gabbard, who worked on Interbank Incident, which is one we covered on the show a while back, but that was a way ahead of its time game. He also worked on a game called Keys of the Wizard, and he worked on a C64 game called Roll Call USA. So I don't know what that is, but it was listed to. What a roll call? Maybe it just teaches you how to do. When you say roll calls, it's like you say yes sir.
Maybe the whole game you just say.
Maybe it prompts you. This was actually published by Tandy, Radio Shack, and was all in the UK on the Dragon. It was published by everyone's favorite Micro Deal Limited. It's just like a Micro Deal. That's one of the crappier names that was around. It's funny. The Spectral Associates did some publishing, but eventually they just let Tandy publish all their stuff. Of course, this is a top-down, like 2D scrolling racing game. Not really. It's more of a, okay, so let's try to describe this. Think bump and jump without the jump and replace the jump with a turbo. And that's what you've got here.
This is bump and bump.
This is bump and dump. So you are a race car on a scrolling. Let's assume this is a never-ending track. Or maybe it's a curved track.
Well, right, it's just, yeah.
It's a never-ending straightaway that you zoom down and attempt to wreck other racers on the track.
And by wreck, we mean bash them into the sidewall.
Except for the ambulance, which you don't get any points for killing the ambulance. So, you've got a scrolling, if you play this in normal mode, color-wise, you've got red, you're basically on a track that's black, and the sidebars of the track, or walls, or whatever, like this, are red and white. Yeah. All right? And then you're pitted against items that you would not normally find in the Demolition Derby, including, like, basically things that look like tractors. They give all this stuff wacky names in the manual, but it's basically like normal-looking cars and tractors, and there's an ambulance in there, and there's also gas tankers, okay?
Well, and bulldozers.
Well, that's what I mean. But I said tractor. That's what I mean.
No,
bulldozer.
it's a tracked bulldozer. Well, I mean,
each of these have a different capability of how far they'll bounce when you hit them, how far you'll bounce. Generally, if something's real tough, you'll bounce further than it'll bounce. And if something's not that tough, it'll bounce pretty good, and you'll be like, okay. Yeah. And the object of the game is to go as far as you can and without running out of gas, and you have to complete the level you're on. You have to knock out 15 cars. There's a little counter at the side of the screen that tells you how many cars you have to knock out. Now, you're probably asking yourself, hey, Amigo Aaron, because that's what you call yourself, why do you have the 4 joystick directions? What do you do with the button in there? Well, it doesn't jump. Jump is for suckers. This is a turbo button. Now, the turbo button sounds cool. It actually is cool. But when you use it, you burn through more of your fuel.
At an incredible rate.
Yeah.
You can't just hold the button down. You'll lose almost instantly.
At the bottom of the screen are fuel gauges. And there's actually 2 of them down there if you're playing 2 players, and there's still 2 if you're playing 1 player.
Play 2 players.
We'll get to that. And so as you go through the course, you will run out of fuel. And so you have to, the only way to get more fuel is to destroy the old gas tankers. That shtick. How does it get in your tank? Don't know. This is the true derby tradition. It just sort of beams in. So just out of the gate, Brent, having not played this for many years, I'd wager.
True.
And I'm sure you played this before you read the docs. What did you think about this straight out and straight in?
First impressions.
Yeah.
I felt very annoyed.
That's not a good start.
Well, when you turn this thing on and you're expecting you to kind of be the big guy on the course,
yeah,
and you're out there running everyone into walls. You're not the big guy on the course. You're of the 5 vehicles, you might be 3rd in the hierarchy.
I'd say yeah.
And it's weird.
You're behind the tractor or bulldozer, and you're absolutely behind the gas tank,
the fuel truck.
So you're at bare minimum, you're 3rd. You're right.
So it was very ping-pongy when you first load it up, and you don't feel like you have any control. And the worst thing in a driving game, which this is loosely a driving game, is feeling like you have no control. Although that feeling does get better. What was your first impressions?
Pretty much the same. So once I went through this, I was like, what am I doing? I had no idea. So I was like, I'm going to break out the manual. The manual begins with this flowery prose. If you'll indulge me, Brent. It says, the roar of the engines, the smell of burning rubber, the scraping of metal at high speeds, the wrecked, smoldering heap left behind. This is no ordinary race. It's Demolition Derby, and the stakes are high. Only the daring accept the challenge. Only the brave survive. If you like fierce competition, fast-paced action, and a heavy dose of danger, you have what it takes to be a serious Demolition Derby contender and maybe even a winner. So there you go. Pretty good. But once you get in the manual, this manual is unusual.
Yeah.
In that, a lot of the stuff it references are hand-drawn.
Yeah.
In color.
Yeah.
Which is odd. There's one great, in between page. It just shows a can of gas,
an oil can,
and a spark plug. I don't know why. So you learn. That's where you learn. Okay, the 15 cars, how to get more gas. And one thing I noticed, you're right. You do get ping-ponged around. So I thought to myself, there's got to be something to this turbo. And really, the turbo is sort of key in this game because you have to sort of crank it up, the careening and stuff, to get a little more action out of them. Some of the stuff in this game, and if you just try to hit it without turbo, I mean, you barely move it. The gas trucks are by far the hardest things to wreck. They will get right up on the raggedy edge of that course, and they won't go. And you need that oil out of those, and gas, whatever. And so you've got to just go in.
See, I played this differently.
Yeah, I mean, okay, what did you do?
I used the turbo purely defensively.
I tried that, but it didn't seem to help me that much. Because when you're careening, it doesn't really help you come out of the careen.
It does a little bit. It does a little bit. It makes it doesn't, like when you get bumped, if you're turbo and holding the other direction, it doesn't do anything. But what it does do is as soon as you stop your momentum from being bumped, it allows you to immediately go the other direction. If you're not doing turbo, you have to slowly pull out of that bump. Yeah. So that is almost primarily what I ended up using turbo on, strategically wise.
This game, well, let's talk about the multiplayer. So you can play a solo, or you can play simultaneous 2-player. Which this is sort of the cool gem of the game. And you can play you can play as a team or as people dueling, fighting each other. If you play as a team, you're sort of working together to get the 15 cards and move on. And as long as one person gets you there, you'll move on, all right? Yeah. If you play against each other, obviously you're just beating the crap out of each other into the wall. But it's still, that's probably the best way to play this game would be with 2 people.
Well, obviously that would make it more fun, right? Because you've got someone there to interact with that has some skin in the game, because the computer opponents just kind of neander. They don't necessarily aim to take you out, and they don't necessarily try to save themselves. They'll
take each other out sometimes.
Yeah, when they come on the screen, they have a angle and momentum that they're going to slightly drift left or right. Yeah. And if something gets in their way, if one's drifting faster than the other one, they'll bump into each other and they will react just the same as if you hit them. However, if you don't do anything, they'll just fade off the end of the screen no matter what. It's your speed, your up and down, doesn't control how fast the track scrolls. It only affects where you are on the screen.
The track's on a hard roll.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the additional things that you don't see in like a bump and jump, and which is there are obstacles that will appear on the track in the middle of the track in various random places.
Well, that happens on bump and jump as well, but
no, I'm not big chunks of medium that will come down. For example, there'll be like a curve that will be inexplicably in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Like if you hit it, you die. There'll also be like a wad of junk, presumably a wrecked car or something.
I always thought it was a rock.
If you hit that, you'll also be killed.
And you can bump your opponents into those things.
Right. Although it's funny, when you don't touch an opponent, they'll just go right through the rubble without any problem.
If they don't get bumped, they just kind of avoid, they roll over the rocks.
The game has, it's not the perfect game. Let's put it that way. Now, there are problems, and the thing is, they could have easily been addressed, but they weren't. So, for starters, it is way too difficult to bump some of the bigger stuff. I mean, it's borderline impossible, and making the oil truck so incredibly difficult to bump into the wall is not a good thing. Well, it makes the game it makes the game exponentially harder. Plus, you've also got to when you hit some of this stuff, you will careen to the point where you hit the wall, and yet sometimes I've been knocked all the way across the screen almost with nary the ability to stop myself. The bouncing in this is it's too bouncy.
Well. Okay, here's my opinion on the game.
All right.
Because I guess we've reached that point.
Yeah.
This game is on the cusp of being something special, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't mind the bounce physics. I think it's something that you have to learn to adjust to.
They're too bouncing for me.
The game is designed to be, when you play it, you're going to have a game that lasts. When you first start playing it, you're going to have a game that lasts 30 seconds and it's done.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because towards the end, I never scored enough to get a free car, 10,000.
No, God, no.
But I got close. I was in the 7,000 range.
Right.
And it was, and I'm sure if I would have kept going, I could have got there. You learn what is safe and unsafe to do.
Yeah.
For me, I always drove towards the top of the screen, and I always drove in the middle. And I would only go after cars that were starting on an angle to take them to a wall.
How did you keep from hitting the different stuff that would cut the cement borders that would come down?
Defensive turbo. If I saw, because you can't press your nose all the way to the very tip top of the screen.
Yeah, I didn't hang out at the top hardly at all.
I did, because when you do that, you can track the direction of the cars and pull back to line up to hit them. Here's the other thing. If you are going down the screen and you go down diagonal left or right, you slide more than you think you will, because there was a ton of times I would line up to smack into a car and go right below them.
Yeah, and you'll hit the wall. Sometimes it's hard to line it up.
But it's a learning process.
Yeah.
Once you start noticing that kind of stuff happens, you can correct for it. 3 big complaints of the game. Complaint number 1 is when you die, you have 3 lives. When you die, you do not get your fuel refilled.
That is a problem,
And the reason why that's such a big deal is when you get low on fuel, you're trying to get things. If you're low on fuel, it's too late already. You can't hit enough fuel trucks or have the opportunity to hit enough fuel trucks to get back to full. Once you get really below 3/4, I just consider that guy gone, and I try to run out of fuel rather than die. Since you don't get your fuel back when you die, you have to play that way, and I think that's annoying.
Yeah. I hate it. And there's other words than losing a life, coming back on, and then the second you're there, you die.
Yes,
I hated that.
because you run out of fuel. Thing number 2, do not turbo unless it is absolutely necessary. I know you were saying you using turbo as an attack.
Well, usually when I was going after oil trucks so I could get that gas back real quick and get it.
Well, The problem is
you come out ahead if you do it.
You do if you get it, but if you smack it and it doesn't go far enough or something, you waste fuel. I only use turbo defensively and very sparingly. And since I stayed pretty much in the middle unless I was going for an attack, I was doing okay for that. Problem number 3, and this is, in my opinion, the biggest problem with the game, is the scoring is far too generic. It's, one car's worth 100, second car's worth 2.
I got the scoring right here. The Amigo is worth no points.
Which is dumb, because the only way you can kill it is by knocking other cars into it, so that should have been worth big points.
The gas just gives you gas.
Yes, you get no points for a tanker truck.
The kind of pointy car gets you 100, the black car gets you 200, and the bulldozer gets you 300 points. Right. That's the scoring right there.
And that is boring scoring, okay? Boring scoring. And they could have adjusted it to super easy. There's a lot, and it would encourage more action on the screen. Every time you bump a car that bumps into another car, if the car that gets bumped goes into the wall, you get the points for it. Awesome, cool. So why not count those bumps as a multiplier?
Yeah, that would be cool. I thought about the same thing myself.
I already spoke about the ambulance. The ambulance comes up from the bottom of the screen and is pretty much indestructible unless you bump another car into it. That's cool. I think that's a fun extra enemy. But you get no points for killing it. So all you do is you see this slow-moving ambulance coming up the screen, and you just stay to the other side.
Yeah.
It's super easy to avoid. It would have been fun to have made that like a bonus thing. I know, don't destroy ambulances. I get all that. Don't make it an ambulance. Make it a tow truck or something.
Yeah.
Because everyone likes to kill those guys. Thing number 3, or on the scoring, multipliers, scores for ambulances, have later levels make the cars worth more. Because really, advancing to the next course after the 15 kills, it gives you your fuel back, but then it's just the same game with extra obstacles. The rocks appear a little more frequently. Ambulances start showing up the deeper into the game you get.
How far into how many courses did you complete? I did not get real far.
I can't remember. I think I've been on the 4th course.
Yeah, I think I got to the 3rd course one time.
But there's no motivation. There's
the colors don't even change. It's not even a palette swap.
Yes, you get your fuel back, and that's fine. But if you're watching what you're doing, for me, I got to the point where I would only go after the bulldozers for the 300 points because I didn't want to advance, or I wanted to get as much out of this earlier stages as I could before there was extra obstacles. So there is a little bit of play, a little bit of strategy on that, but there should have been more. This is a high-point game. You have to make the scoring interesting, and they absolutely failed to do that.
I just think this game is kind of generic, if you want the honest truth. They took the bump and jump concept. They messed around with it a little bit. I don't hate Turbo, as I recall, as I said, they had to pass a certain amount of people to complete the level. Yes. I like that concept of the game.
I don't.
I think it's okay. I like building up the meter on the side to get something to shoot for. But, listen, I know this is a COCO, but how about if you've got so little going on, how about an in-game tune? How about a palette swap when we get to the next course? How about a congratulatory ditty? How about something? Even in Bump and Jump, when you complete the course, you pull into the gas station.
Yeah.
How about at the gas station? Should you fill up? Where's something like the dump truck that just randomly dumps stuff on the screen? The bounces are too high. When you die, you have to wait for the entire screen to clear of cars before it brings you back. So you
that's a bonus.
That's not a bonus. You sit there for 5 seconds waiting for all the cars to clear.
Well, but the alternative is they drop you into the middle of the screen and you're immediately
bumped. It takes forever. Just reset the screen.
I'm okay with the way they did that. The only way you can die is hitting the left and right wall.
No, you can run out of gas.
Oh, I can run out of gas, of course. But
you run out of gas too often. There's not enough. The oil trucks are too hard to kill.
Well, the issue becomes you have to focus on the oil truck.
Yeah. And that's not as much fun.
And you get no points for the oil truck.
You bounce too hard off stuff. I mean, you'll be doing well, you'll think, and then a car will just come down and you'll happen to nick it and he'll shoot you to the wall. I mean, it's not as forgiving as Bump and Jump was.
Oh, no, definitely not.
And that's not good. It doesn't have the multipliers, like you said. It doesn't have that stuff. It's just, it does have, I will give them the 2-player.
Yes.
And I like there are aspects of it that I like, but I think it could have been, with a little tweaking, this could have been a better game. And the thing is, the TRS Color Computer has color computer, what's it called? Color computer action. Color car action, I think that's what it's called, the bump and jump clone.
Yeah.
It's way better than this. And, it's a way better bump and jump clone, and it's also looks better and it's a better courses. Everything about it's better.
But this can be that'll
play on every system. The only difference is that you don't have the 2-player option that you do in this. The 2-player option, that's especially
what
since you
makes
can
it
team
unique.
up.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't want to bury this thing. It's not hideous, but it's not as good as it could have been, which is a real bummer. By the way, you mentioned what your score was.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was looking for reviews of this on Rainbow and stuff. I couldn't find any, but I did. They do have a high score chart. I just grabbed one of the high scores on this. A fellow named Bob DeWitt out of Blue Island, Illinois is the one I grabbed. His high score in this game, allegedly, 365,400.
The biggest problem with that?
That is a ton of score.
That for a score that high, this becomes an endurance game, and I don't want to play that.
Well, I'm just, yeah, it would be an endurance game.
That score, because the most you can score at a time is 300 points. So that score would have taken, hours, tens of hours.
Curtis just actually made you not an idiot. I'm in the chat. He says that Brent means color call action only requires 32K memory, and Demolition Derby only needs 16K memory.
That's correct.
Which is true, but he didn't know that. But Curtis still saved your bacon on that one.
I knew that. That's why I mentioned it.
32K. It's not like there's not a lot of COCOs that have 32K memory.
Just saying, this can be played on more systems.
I did look this up on eBay, Brent, and this is one of the carts that is in the generic box, in the States, and this will run you sometimes it's probably the prices fluctuate on this quite a bit. Sometimes a loose cart would go for more than one in the box. I guess it's who was looking for it at the time.
Yeah.
$25 to $35 will generally take this to the house.
I think that's a lot.
Well, sometimes
for the cart, okay.
You may get it cheaper. These things, it's not like there's a ton of them out there. This is one of the games, when it comes to reviews, and we got some to read off, but I want to talk about my faves, the Ice People. They did a review on this, Demolition Derby. He gave it a B-. He mentions that
that's fair.
He mentions that this is the first game he ever figured out how to copy the ROM cartridge from the memory of the COCO and save it on disc. It's the first game he ever pirated up cartridge. He says, what about the game? He goes, well, I managed to get some fixes for my pirated game a few months later, and it's okay, but not in a not terribly exciting way. It's a conversion of the arcade bump and jump, and it's done fine. It sort of is, but
not at all.
But it doesn't have any elements that make it all that addictive. Your role is to guide your car along a track that scrolls from the top of the screen downward, forcing all the other cars off along the way. The harder the car is to push, the more you bounce off of it, and therefore are in danger of hitting the sidewalls, and the more points you get for it. If I recall right, this is also critical in keeping your fuel supply going and advancing to further levels. Better than a lot of driving games in the market, but I'd still boot up 2 or 3 better titles before considering this one. And the titles he mentions are Speed Racer, Pit Stop 2, which I would agree are probably, I don't know, Pit Stop 2, the pit stop part was funny, but the actual gameplay was okay. We got quite a few reviews on the COCO show this week here.
This is an easy player, that's why.
Yeah, and of course this is one you can play online if you'd like. So
yeah.
The Jazz Dog chimed in, the dog. Who's a frequent TSI player. We've been playing with him quite a bit. Jazz Dog says, it's been long suspected that there exists a Valhalla for rednecks. That's a good way to start your review. A great junkyard in the sky where grizzled old mechanics, having proven their worth by fixing up both Thunderbirds, compete in an eternal demolition derby on a dead straight, never-ending highway. Should you find yourself there, it will take all your driving skills you learned in life to control the bobsled you will be given. No Thunderbirds here, dear Cletus. Your eternal chariot will drive worse than a Yugo in a frozen duck pond. Boy, Jazz Dog's on fire. In order to destroy your competition, you must force them into the walls, lining the eternal road. You'll find this often as dangerous to you as the other road warriors. Your car, already barely responsive, will become uncontrollable when you trade paint. The occasional road obstacle will make this all more treacherous. Your vehicle also requires gas, which can be gained by crashing oil trucks. Those big suckers are hard to move, and sometimes only the fates will position them in a position where you have a chance of gaining some of their sweet nectar. The risk must be taken, or your battle will end the eternal shame of an empty fuel tank. There's some fun to be had testing your patience and setting up for the perfect bump, or careening vehicles into each other, or using a bump to shoot your car away from the obstacle in your path. Skill can be employed if you have the strength to fight the understeer. A wise warrior will employ patience, picking targets with great care and cunning. The best way to derby is not to derby. 6.5 oil pans out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
What a review that was from the Jazz Dog. This guy's got Jack.
He's got lyrics, man.
We got another one of our perennial favorites here, the Pajaco, who chimes in. For a handful of games, this is fine. Play for longer, and you'll be hurling abuse to the TV like a trooper.
Yes.
The problem is I did play for longer, just to have one more go. I did not get to the end of the first course, no matter how hard I tried.
Ooh, Jocko.
That's because you don't get to the end. Maybe he didn't know that.
Well, no, you do. It says course complete.
Well, I know, but you don't get there. It just shows up. The game is very much risk and reward, and it's really about choosing your momentum to slam other cars off the road. I like that you can gain fuel, also bashing cars into fuel trucks to knock them fuel trucks off the road. A lot of the times, I felt like I lost control of my car when hit, and it just shot across the road and slammed into the wall. I agree. I swear, I almost broke my joystick shaft pulling that sucker to one side. Possibly I need an analog stick. By the way, this does play great with the black views. This is how I played it. I wasn't a fan of not refueling when you crash, as you can just crash through low fuel, respawn, and run out of fuel, die again very quickly. And also, your opponent's cars to recover from a hit a lot quicker than you, and there was some BS not hitting the wall when they should have been going into it for sure. That's true. That's the way I felt. A Demolition Derby is not going to set the world on fire, but it's fun in short doses, and probably a riot in two-player. 5 out of 10. P.S. There was part of me expecting to come across some frogs trying to cross this road while playing it. Yeah, I can understand that. And then rounding out the reviews, the King Dong of gaming, El Curtis, boy, all hail, who states, Demolition Derby is a Tandy exclusive Spectral Associates game. They only sold through Tandy, never on their own. I view it as an okay version of Bump and Jump without the jump. While it's fun to run drivers off the road and ram them into each other or the walls, and sometimes tempting to do in real life. What? Don't do that, Curtis. And also to hit fuel trucks to get fuel, which he questions. The game gets repetitive fairly quickly. The sound is just okay. There's not hardly any sound. If you only knew about software sold by Radio Shack at the time of its release, it would be an okay game. But with other third-party games like a Color Car Action available, this one falls short. 5 out of 10 overall score. 6 out of 10 if Radio Shack sold software only. And try Color Car Action for some actual bump and jump action, particularly the recently optimized ones. This maybe should have been called Bump and Grind. After playing it for a while, you feel like it's a grind. There you go. Man, that's some good action there. The reviewers were feeling spunky. Something set them up on this one to get them fired up.
I think I enjoyed this more than everyone.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the first thing that would help is forget about a bump and jump. It is like bump and jump to a certain degree, but I mean, the strategy's totally different in this. In bump and jump, you're trying to avoid people a lot, and then you hit people when you have to. In this, you have to strategically hit people to get that bump up that scoring or the hit counter. But overall, you know, it's middle of the road. It's just, I think this concept could be tweaked to make this a lot more fun. This game can be tweaked to make it a lot more fun.
Yes.
I just found it midland, sort of a low effort, especially from someone who did Interback Instant, which is off the charts. The effort was off the charts. So I'm guessing maybe this is early in his career or something.
Well, again, I agree. I think with a few tweaks, this could be a lot more fun. When the name of the game is scoring, you've got to make your scoring interesting. But you know, how long did you play this?
Lots. I played it because it was so simple. So I could just pick it up and play it. I can play it in my browser on the Mister.
Cumulative time spent.
Probably, I don't know, 4 hours.
You're wrong. You should have never played it that much.
Well, I mean, it broke up over 2 weeks.
Yeah, but that's too much. This game is not a play 4-hour game.
Well, I mean, trust me, I didn't play them at once. I would play like maybe a half-hour spurts.
You get that's.
It does have a one more game appeal.
It does.
It's probably because your game was so quick.
Well, I found that because I played this in 2 segments.
Yeah.
The first segment I played the most time. I played for I don't know. It was about an hour.
Yeah.
And I quit because I got frustrated.
Yeah.
The second time I played it, I only played it for like 30 minutes. Because I had a really good game. I was like, I ain't going to do better than that. I quit.
It's hard to get momentum in your games on this thing, but when you get it, you hold on to it. It's funny, in the chat, a lot of people are mentioning that this also reminds them of Spy Hunter. And to a certain degree, it can be as frustrating as Spy Hunter, and those Spy Hunter's a lot more congested. You have a lot less track to work with on there, but yeah, I can understand, especially some of those cars, I feel like you're hitting that indestructible car over and over again.
It's definitely, in my opinion, it's definitely closer to Spy Hunter than it is Bump and Jump. But I don't, Spy Hunter definitely has a more fleshed out game as well.
I would agree with you, Brent. So, that was our look at Demolition Derby. An interesting, fun game that you can kill a couple minutes with. That's the way I would go with it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The 2 players, we'll have to put that on our list for stuff to play on.
Thanks
for giving.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a few upcoming things before we get down to our next game on the COCO show. Of course, we've got several months, but of course, the day after Thanksgiving, we will be doing Thanksgiving Marathon. With more details to come on that. We've got International Computer Club coming up in September. Should be a lot of fun. We've been releasing a lot of stuff on the channel. If you missed last week's ARG Presents, it was our 300th episode. Hop over and catch that. It was a lot of fun. It included Brent's wacky music video.
Well, wasn't just mine. You were there too.
Well, I mean, under your guidance, I was there. But that's definitely a Brent joint. It's been received quite well. And I've had some pretty well-received Friday Disaster streams the past couple weeks. So a lot of good stuff to check out over on the Amigos Retro Gaming channel. We'd love it if you'd have a look at it. And heck, while you're there, we never say this, but we should. Give us a like, a subscribe, give us the business. Give us the iTunes review. Let's get them all in. We could use some iTunes reviews. Why not? I don't know how many the COCO shows got. Might as well get another one in. Stand up with the COCO, brother. Shall we see what we're going to be playing next time around on the COCO show? This one is coming forthwith. Bam. It's Sinistar with 2 A's. That is classic COCO baloney right there. Sinistar with stars spelled with 2 A's.
How can we get around the copyright? Add an A.
It's not quite as, my favorite is still Crystal Castles, but they spelled it wrong. That's my favorite. Crystal Castle spelled wrong. But Sinistar is another one that looks like it'll be a lot of fun. And if you're watching the video of this, it's the only thing I can get for as a cover is the old plastic cover. So I mean, it's in a baggie. It's one of those.
Baggy game.
Baggy games sometimes are your money games, man.
And sometimes they're not.
So thanks for joining us. So we'll be back next week with ARG Presents, the Brent. Do you recall what we're doing on ARG Presents? It was some wacky machine. I can't remember what it was.
I know I haven't looked into it at all yet, which is usually a bad sign.
Yeah, so hop into ARG Presents next week where you'll see something. Something will happen, that's for sure. That's all we got, everybody. So until next time around the COCO show, all hail
Curtis L. Boyle?
Close. It's L. Curtis Boyle. Idiot. Curtis, beat him.